Yo, Atlas speaking and welcome to part 8 of What If I Was Reincarnated into Naruto as the blind shinobi of the main branch Hyuga clan. Let the tale begin. Chapter 211, Fear not, for we, the mighty Ino Shikacho trio, shall undoubtedly subdue Kinkaku and securely seal him away, declared Shikamaru with unwavering confidence resonating in his voice. Renowned as the most astute strategist among them, Shikamaru swiftly set about crafting intricate plans to ensnare Kinkaku and confine him within the sealing pot. It didn't take long for Shikamaru to meticulously devise the flawless strategy for Kinkaku's containment. With a reassuring smile, Shikamaru turned to Choji and Ino, gesturing towards Kinkaku as he rose, battered, from Choji's powerful blow. It appears he's rather incensed. Let us swiftly suppress him. I, for one, am growing fatigued from this protracted skirmish. Both Choji and Ino responded with resolute nods, their demeanor exuding not a trace of apprehension or trepidation, but instead radiating pure confidence and eager anticipation for the impending showdown. Kinkaku let out a thunderous roar, seething with anger at being humiliated by a youngster barely half his age. I will surely obliterate you all to erase this stain on my honor, he declared vehemently. With these words, Kinkaku resolved to unleash his most formidable attack. He began to condense a tailed beast bomb, channeling immense power before releasing it toward Ino Shikacho. Seeing the impending danger, Choji moved forward to intercept the tailed beast bomb, only to be halted by Shikamaru. Do not act rashly, Choji, despite your remarkable regenerative abilities. Leave this to us, Shikamaru cautioned. Halting in his tracks, Choji awaited further instructions from Shikamaru. Ino stepped confidently forward, her voice resolute as she declared, "Leave it to me, I will handle this move with precision." Utilizing her telekinetic abilities, Ino focused on controlling the movement of the tailed beast's bomb. Initially, the bomb's motion slowed to a crawl before eventually coming to a complete standstill. "Shikamaru, could you please ensure the removal of any ninjas in the vicinity?" Ino inquired, her gaze fixed on the task at hand. Shikamaru responded with unwavering assurance, "No problem at all. Leave it to me, I've got it covered." Recognizing Ino's strategy to redirect the tailed beast bomb towards Kinkaku, Shikamaru took charge of the situation. He meticulously directed his efforts towards safeguarding the ninjas surrounding Kinkaku, ensuring their safety amidst the impending chaos. His shadow gradually began to move, spreading across the battlefield like the reaching branches of a mighty tree. As time passed, the shadows seamlessly interconnected with the ninjas stationed nearby. Viewed from above, Shikamaru's presence resembled that of a sturdy root anchoring the tree, his influence extending outwards to the other ninjas like the branches of the same tree. With calculated precision, he orchestrated the retreat of all the ninjas, deftly pulling them away from the danger zone. Once the ninjas were safely evacuated, Ino took charge, deftly manipulating the formidable tailed beast bomb and redirecting its path towards Kinkaku. "Now, it's time for you to experience the consequences of your actions," Ino declared, her focus unwavering as she guided the tailed beast bomb towards its target. Upon witnessing the approaching tailed beast bomb, Kinkaku's eyes widened in astonishment. What manner of Kekkei Genkai is this? Such power is unprecedented. Since when did the Yamanaka clan come into possession of such a formidable ability? Kinkaku was utterly astonished, his heart racing as he beheld the tailed beast bomb hurtling ominously in his direction. Reacting with lightning speed, he swiftly maneuvered away from his current position, but his movement abruptly ceased after just a single step. "What in the world?" exclaimed Kinkaku in disbelief, frantically scanning his surroundings for the cause of his sudden halt. It didn't take long for him to discern that multiple shadows, crafted from an assortment of materials, were intricately entwined with his own. Realization dawned upon him, this was the cunning work of Shikamaru. In a matter of moments, the colossal tailed beast bomb collided with Kinkaku, unleashing a cataclysmic explosion that engulfed the entire vicinity in a billowing cloud of dust. As the dust gradually settled, the once hidden figure of Kinkaku emerged, his countenance betraying a sense of profound embarrassment. His body bore numerous wounds, and it was nothing short of miraculous that he still drew breath. Yet, even more astonishing was the fact that he remained steadfastly upright on his feet. Now, with his strength greatly diminished, our opportunity arises to seal him and bring this battle to its final conclusion," declared Shikamaru, his gaze shifting between Ino and Choji. Having fought alongside Shikamaru for so long, Ino and Choji swiftly grasped his intent. "I'll take care of restraining him, and Ino, you know your part," Choji affirmed. Ino nodded, fully aware that once Choji had Kinkaku under control, she needed to manipulate him into responding to Darui's commands. With a sudden surge in size, Choji propelled himself towards Kinkaku's position. Meanwhile, as Choji closed the distance, Shikamaru addressed Darui, "You need to be ready. When the time comes, you'll need to engage him verbally. The moment he responds, we'll enact the sealing ritual." Darui nodded in acknowledgement and said with assurance, "Don't worry, I am absolutely ready for this." Shikamaru nodded in agreement and cast a glance in the direction of Kinkaku, his gaze unwavering. Choji swiftly emerged from behind Kinkaku and applied pressure, effectively immobilizing him, ensuring Kinkaku's inability to budge from his initial stance, firmly anchoring him in place. As soon as Choji firmly grasped Kinkaku, the latter, seething with anger and gritting his teeth, exclaimed, "I cannot lose to a few brats like you three." "You've already lost, so cease your futile struggles," Choji countered, his grip firm as Kinkaku fiercely attempted to break free. With Kinkaku securely held by Choji, Ino deftly executed the mind transfer jutsu, seamlessly taking control of his actions. Shikamaru, with a nod of approval, signaled to Darui, prompting him into action. "Now," he directed calmly. Darui turned his gaze towards Kinkaku, his voice resonating with disdain as he shouted, "You're a fool." Under Ino's influence, Kinkaku responded with a hint of gratitude, "Thank you," before being forcibly drawn towards the Kahaku no Johei, where he was promptly sealed away. The moment Kinkaku was ensnared within the confines of the Kahaku no Johei pot, jubilant cheers erupted from the assembled ninjas, marking the successful neutralization of Kinkaku, their most formidable adversary. Chapter 212, Choza, with a sense of pride swelling within him, took measured steps until he stood shoulder to shoulder with Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji. With a gentle yet firm hand, he reached out and rested it on Choji's broad shoulder, a silent gesture conveying a father's deep affection and admiration. "With the remarkable display of strength you've shown, you have truly made me proud," Choza spoke, his voice resonating with genuine joy. "I am elated to witness my son ascend to such formidable heights, surpassing even my own prowess and strength." The trio of Choji, Ino, and Shikamaru exchanged warm smiles, their hearts uplifted by Choza's words. They understood the depth of his pride and felt a sense of accomplishment in earning it. While the fame of the Ino Shikacho trio reverberated across the world, they had never dared to envision themselves standing toe-to-toe with the legendary Kages. Yet here they stood, the proud torchbearers of the 16th generation of Ino Shikacho, having not only faced but triumphed over adversaries of Kage-level might. Amidst the warmth of Choza's praise, Darui's thoughts were interrupted by a voice echoing in his mind, a stark reminder of the pressing matters at hand. "What is the current situation?" the voice inquired urgently. "The chakra signatures of Kinkaku have vanished. Has the sealing process of Kinkaku been successfully completed?" This voice belonged to Shikaku, as he inquired of Darui regarding the situation unfolding on the battlefield. "Indeed, we have achieved success in sealing Lord Kinkaku within the pot, and we owe it all to the efforts of Ino Shikacho," Darui responded, his grip firm upon the pot. A palpable sense of relief washed over him. Finally, the menacing presence of Kinkaku had been contained. Upon hearing Darui's response, Shikaku exhibited little surprise. Given his keen intellect, he discerned that there existed but one plausible scenario in which Kinkaku would communicate with Darui, if Ino had seized control of Kinkaku's body, speaking on his behalf while Darui maintained hold of the pot. It is indeed fortuitous that Kinkaku has been sealed away. However, we must now direct our focus towards eradicating all remaining threats scattered across the battlefield, Shikaku advised Darui. Despite the resolution of major adversaries like Kinkaku, Asuma, and Kato, there still lingered numerous minor foes requiring attention. "I will most certainly do that," Darui replied with unwavering conviction in his voice. After carefully considering Darui's response, Shikaku gracefully terminated their communication. Darui then entrusted the pot to a safe location before embarking towards the battlefield, where he faced the daunting task of dealing with numerous white Zetsu and other Edo Tensei manifestations of individuals of lesser power. Following his conversation with Darui, Shikaku seamlessly established a connection with Choza, seeking to gain a comprehensive understanding of the battle's unfolding dynamics and the remarkable progression of Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji's prowess. Choza, as you were an eyewitness to the entirety of the battle, I implore you to vividly recount the events, Shikaku requested, his tone reflecting both urgency and anticipation. Upon hearing Shikaku's telepathic inquiry, Choza promptly and meticulously described how Jirioka's interventions had bolstered the abilities of Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji, elucidating the tangible manifestations of their newfound strength. As Choza concluded his detailed explanation, a sense of contentment washed over both Inoichi and Shikaku, their countenances adorned with gratified smiles. It seems that Jirioku has indeed rewarded us handsomely for our investment in him. I am genuinely pleased that Shikamaru has found such a formidable ally in Jirioku, Shikaku remarked with a hint of satisfaction. Although this expression of gratitude was initially articulated by Shikaku alone, the sentiment resonated deeply with both Choza and Inoichi, fostering a shared sense of appreciation. Recognizing that the present moment was not conducive to sentimentality or emotional reflection, Shikaku asserted, "Very well, we can certainly delve deeper into this matter at a later, more opportune time. However, for now, our primary focus must remain steadfastly on the ongoing war and its exigencies." With that, Shikaku gracefully terminated his connection with Choza. Subsequently, Choza, along with Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji, swiftly departed to confront their remaining adversaries, their resolve fortified by the camaraderie and support they shared. While Kinkaku was successfully dealt with, the same cannot be said for Edo Tensei Mu, 3rd Reikage, Raza, and 2nd Mizukage, who still persist as significant threats and nuisances to the 4th Division. Inoki and Gaara found themselves grappling with the formidable challenge posed by all 4 of the resurrected Kages. Eventually, Gaara managed to overcome Raza, who then humbly apologized to his son for the multitude of wrongdoings he had committed. Just as Raza was on the verge of being sealed, the body of the 3rd Reikage fell under the manipulative control of Kabuto. With a surge of lightning-infused chakra, the 3rd Reikage shattered the sand barrier encasing him, thwarting his imminent sealing. Not content with merely his own liberation, he proceeded to dismantle the enclosures holding the other Edo Tensei Kages, granting them freedom from the sealing process. "What in the world are you doing, 3rd Reikage?" Raza demanded angrily, now liberated from the sealing ritual. He had been on the brink of being sealed away, relieved at the prospect of no longer having to confront his own son, only to have the 3rd Reikage disrupt the proceedings. "It's futile, 3rd Kazekage. Can't you see?" His eyes betray the fact that he's under external control, 2nd Mizukage remarked, gesturing toward the 3rd Reikage's eyes. This revelation didn't come as a shock to many present. It was evident that Kabuto had assumed manual control over the 3rd Reikage's body. Chapter 213. A few minutes ago, in the dimly lit and shadowy base of Kabuto, White Zetsu silently appeared behind him and said, "He is coming to the battlefield." Kabuto narrowed his eyes in concentration and asked, "You mean Jirioku?" White Zetsu, in his usual nonchalant tone, replied, "Of course. Who else would it be? He is rapidly approaching the battlefield, and it is only a matter of minutes before he arrives." Kabuto pondered this information and then said with a serious expression, "I see. It seems I need to resurrect Uchiha Madara to handle this situation. But what are we going to do about Jirioku's formidable ability to destroy the Edo Tensei?" asked White Zetsu, his voice tinged with concern. "We now have no other option left. We must inform Uchiha Madara about Jirioku's ability and leave the rest to him. There must be some weakness in Jirioku's ability that Uchiha Madara will have to discover himself," said Kabuto with determination. Kabuto had been reluctant to resurrect Uchiha Madara without first identifying the weakness in Jirioku's ability, but now he had no other choice. The battle had already begun, and it was impossible to halt it now. Kabuto pushed aside any unnecessary thoughts and, with a resolute expression, declared, "However, the resurrection of Uchiha Madara will take time, and I need to buy us some until then." After making this decision, Kabuto took manual control over the body of the third Raikage. As soon as he did, he observed the fourth Kazekage being sealed away by Gaara. Without a moment's hesitation, he controlled the body of the third Raikage to intervene and stop the sealing process of the fourth Kazekage. He succeeded in doing so with ease. Despite the chaotic battlefield, Kabuto's mind was clear. He knew that every second counted, and he was determined to do whatever it took to ensure Uchiha Madara's resurrection was successful. The stakes were incredibly high, and failure was not an option. Back to the present moment on the chaotic battlefield where the Edo Tensei versions of the various Kages were engaged in combat. "All of you, run away. The third Raikage is not in his right mind," announced Raza urgently. However, as soon as Raza made this announcement, he himself began to attack using his gold dust. This was due to the automatic attack program embedded within him. He was not acting alone. The second Mizukage also moved and went to a different part of the battlefield, launching attacks on other ninjas of the allied shinobi forces. Gaara, despite being low on chakra, somehow managed to hold his ground against his father. "I am sorry, son, but I have no choice. My body moves on its own. I will try to make things easier for you by announcing the moves that I am going to make," said Raza. Regret and genuine concern were clearly visible on Raza's face as he spoke these words. Gaara, exhausted and struggling to maintain his defenses, listened intently to his father's warnings. He knew that despite Raza's unwilling actions, the battle was far from over, and he had to stay focused. The battlefield around them was filled with chaos, the sounds of clashing weapons and jutsus echoing through the air. Meanwhile, the third Raikage, under Kabuto's control, continued to wreak havoc, his immense power causing devastation wherever he went. The second Mizukage's attacks further added to the turmoil, making it increasingly difficult for the allied shinobi forces to maintain their positions. "I know, and I am not so weak, so don't worry," said Gaara while countering Raza's attack. The battlefield was divided into three parts, one for the Raikage, another for Raza, and the last for the second Mizukage. Inoki arrived shortly and immediately went to support Gaara. While deflecting an attack from Raza, Inoki asked, "What happened here? I thought you were going to seal the fourth Kazekage and the others. Why are they suddenly free and attacking so vigorously?" Gaara explained the situation as briefly as possible. "So you mean the third Raikage has been taken over manually, and he freed the others from the sealing process?" said Inoki. After saying this, he looked in the direction of the third Raikage to confirm whether he was really being controlled manually. Upon seeing the Raikage's eyes, Inoki verified what Gaara had just explained. "It seems you witnessed it yourself. Do you have any plans on how we can stop the third Raikage's rampage?" asked Gaara. In a situation like this, the best way to counter the Raikage is by attacking him with powerful wind-release jutsu. However, knowing him, I doubt that will even work against that monster," said Inoki. As Inoki spoke, a memory from the past came to mind, the time when the third Raikage single-handedly stopped the advance of 10,000 IWA shinobi, allowing his comrades to escape safely. "By the way, were you able to seal the second Tsuchikage?" asked Gaara. He was still in combat, but due to Inoki's presence, the pressure on him was considerably lower, allowing him to recover somewhat. "Yes, I barely managed to seal my teacher," replied Inoki, a look of relief crossing his face. "I see, that's a good thing. Now we just have to somehow seal the rest of the Kages. Thanks for the support so far. Now, please go and guide the ninjas on how to deal with the third Raikage. He's rampaging like a bull." "I can handle the attacks from my father," said Gaara, reassuring Inoki. "Sigh, at the age of retirement, I have to fight with all my might," sighed Inoki as he left Gaara to deal with Raza. Chapter 214, He is just too strong. "Save me, he's approaching. His defenses are just too strong. We have attacked him so many times, but all of those attacks were completely useless. Can we even win against him?" Desperate cries for help and shouts of despair clearly resounded throughout the chaotic battlefield. The reason for all of this turmoil was none other than the Third Reikage. Under Kabuto's control, the Third Reikage was in a league of his own, and his defenses were simply impenetrable, rendering all attacks futile. Observing the worsening situation, Temari decisively ordered, "All of you, do not leave your formation. Whoever can use wind release, gather around me immediately." To defeat the Third Reikage, who excels in lightning release, we have only one option: we must counter his attacks with a very powerful wind release jutsu. After receiving Temari's order, the ninjas who were adept in wind release techniques began to converge around her. "Okay, now that all of you have gathered here, I have only one thing to say: do not hold anything back. Utilize your most potent wind release jutsu from your arsenal. Do not reserve anything," instructed Temari. Listening attentively to Temari's directives, all the ninjas present nodded in agreement and comprehension. Shortly thereafter, the preparations were completed. "All of you who are in our line of attack, immediately step aside," commanded Temari. Without the slightest hesitation, the ninjas promptly complied and shifted aside. As they did so, a flurry of wind release jutsu was unleashed by Temari and her fellow wind release users. Each wind release jutsu found its mark accurately, striking the Third Reikage with precision. The impact of the attacks obscured the figure of the Third Reikage, enveloping him in a dense cloud of dust. Temari, who was growing increasingly impatient to see the results of her attack, swiftly swung her fan, effortlessly dispersing the dust cloud shrouding Reikage. As the dust settled, Reikage's figure emerged clearly into view. Anticipation had gripped everyone present as they braced themselves to witness the aftermath of the assault on the Third Reikage. However, their expectations were swiftly overturned when they beheld a sight contrary to their predictions. The Third Reikage appeared unscathed, bearing only superficial skin injuries and numerous cuts. While these wounds might have proven bothersome had he been alive and in his original form, in his current state as an Edo Tensei entity, they held little significance. Even in the face of such formidable wind release attacks, he sustained only minor injuries, remarked one of the ninjas standing beside Temari, their tone tinged with resignation as they acknowledged the futility of their efforts against the Third Reikage. "Did you know that in the past, he was called the strongest spear and the strongest shield?" came a voice as soon as the ninja finished speaking. This voice belonged to none other than Inoki, the seasoned Tsuchikage, who had just arrived after leaving Gaara's side. "Tsuchikage, how do you suggest we defeat the Reikage?" asked Temari, her voice carrying a hint of urgency. "If I were at my peak, I would have been able to hold off the Reikage myself, but now, to stand a chance against him, we need a very powerful wind release user. Someone who can wield even more powerful wind release techniques than you just did," explained Inoki, his tone grave with the weight of experience. "But where will we find such a person?" "I don't know anyone who's better than me in terms of wind release," said Temari, her confidence momentarily shaken despite being recognized as one of the strongest wind release users in the world and currently the most powerful wind release user on the battlefield. As if in response to Temari and Inoki's urgent plea for assistance, Naruto's shadow clone, infused with the power of Kurama's chakra in his KCM-1 form, materialized on the battlefield. "Naruto!" Inoki exclaimed in surprise, his eyes widening at the unexpected appearance. "Naruto, what are you doing here?" Temari asked, her voice tinged with a mix of concern and confusion. "I also want to ask, Naruto, wasn't it decided that you are not allowed to be on the battlefield? So why are you here?" Inoki inquired, his tone reflecting a blend of skepticism and curiosity. "Don't worry, Gramps. I already have permission to be on the battlefield. If you doubt me, you can confirm it with Uncle Shikaku," Naruto reassured, his voice firm and resolute. Naruto then directed his gaze towards the Third Reikage, who was wreaking havoc with his relentless assault. Taking in the gravity of the situation, Naruto added, "And it seems that you all are not in a good situation, so I came here to help," his determination evident in his words. After hearing Naruto's confident tone, Temari nodded in agreement and remarked, "But none of the attacks seem to work on him, no matter how formidable they are. His defense is just ridiculous." We need a wind release jutsu of immense power to take down the third Raikage. Oh, and coincidentally, I happen to be a very powerful wind release user, replied Naruto with a determined grin. With these words, he summoned a Rasengan into his hand and swiftly moved into action, launching an attack on the third Raikage. Naruto did this with the intention of unleashing his most potent technique, the Rasen Shuriken, against the formidable foe. Meanwhile, as Naruto engaged in combat with the third Raikage, Inoki quickly reached out to Inoichi, seeking confirmation about Naruto's authorization to join the war. Chapter 215, Tobirama's eyes widened at Jiraiyaku's words. How could he know? The thought had crossed his mind more than once during the battle, but he had hidden it well, or so he thought. Jiraiyaku's perceptiveness was beyond unsettling. Every secret Tobirama held, every intention he had buried deep within, Jiraiyaku seemed to lay bare with ease. Jiraiyaku, without another glance at the Hokage, turned and walked to a nearby boulder. With the weight of a man unconcerned by the chaos around him, he sat down and closed his eyes, resting as if the war itself were of no consequence. He knew this was far from the final battle. More challenges lay ahead, more wars to fight. But for now, he would wait, conserve his strength, and let the events unfold as they were destined to. Naruto, accompanied by all the tailed beasts, arrived at the location where Madara was pinned down. Hashirama's sage art, Gate of the Great God, had done its work, sealing Madara beneath a series of massive, red torii gates, suppressing his movements. The sight should have been reassuring, a powerful enemy neutralized. But Madara's eyes still burned with unshaken confidence. With a smirk, Madara turned his gaze toward Naruto. "Thank you, Naruto," he said, his voice calm, almost mocking, "for extracting the tailed beasts from Obito and weakening him. I must also thank Jiraiyaku. After all, it was his intervention that injured Obito enough for you to succeed." Naruto's expression tightened, irritation flickering across his face. Despite being restrained, despite the looming threat of being sealed, Madara spoke as though the war was still his to control. Naruto clenched his fists, anger bubbling inside him. To Naruto, Madara was already a defeated enemy, yet the man acted as though he was still pulling the strings. "Why are you talking nonsense?" Naruto snapped, his frustration breaking through. "You're done, Madara. You're going to be sealed for good. Just wait and face your fate." But even as Naruto prepared to end things, far away from the battlefield, another surprising event was unfolding. Minato and Kakashi stood in stunned silence as Obito lay on the ground, his eyes filled with a rare, somber resolve. There was no trace of the manipulative villain they had battled for so long, only a man burdened with guilt and a crushing sense of responsibility. Obito's voice was steady, but his words hit hard. "I've caused too much destruction, too many deaths because of this war." He paused, glancing between his former sensei and his once best friend. "I've decided to use the Rinne rebirth technique. I'll bring back all the ninjas who died in this war. That's the only way I can atone for what I've done." Minato's eyes widened, and Kakashi's breath caught in his throat. They both knew the cost of such a technique, Obito's life. Kakashi's voice was heavy with emotion as he finally spoke. "Are you sure, Obito?" Obito nodded slowly, his gaze distant as if already preparing for what lay ahead. "I'm sure. It's the only way to make things right." As the weight of Obito's decision settled over them, Minato and Kakashi stood silently, knowing they couldn't stop him. This was his choice, his redemption. Without wasting a word, Obito formed the necessary hand seals for the Rinne rebirth technique. His expression was resolute, he had accepted his fate. This was how he would atone for the destruction he had caused. But just as the technique was about to activate, a dark presence emerged from beneath the earth. Black Zetsu. In an instant, Black Zetsu shot up, his shadowy form twisting as his 5 fingers pierced Obito's stomach, latching onto him with terrifying speed. Before Minato or Kakashi could even process what was happening, before they could move to stop it, Black Zetsu had fully merged with Obito, taking control of his body. Obito's eyes widened in shock and horror as his body, once his own, was now a puppet for Black Zetsu's sinister will. The power of the Rinne rebirth, meant to bring back the lives lost in the war, was no longer under Obito's control. Instead, Black Zetsu shifted the target of the technique. His true objective was revealed: Madara Uchiha. Minato and Kakashi watched, helpless. Obito, who had sought redemption by offering his life to revive the fallen ninjas, was now being forced to bring Madara back to life and full strength instead. Obito's body trembled as the life force drained from him, his own spirit struggling against Black Zetsu's control but unable to break free. The Rinne rebirth technique was no longer his, it belonged to the will of Black Zetsu that had been manipulating events from the shadows all along. And as the technique neared its completion, Obito's life was slipping away. Kakashi could barely contain his rage and sorrow, knowing that Obito's final act of redemption had been stolen from him. "Obito!" he shouted, but there was nothing more he could do. Black Zetsu had sealed Obito's fate. Chapter 216. After using Gravity Push, Jirioku emerged totally unharmed, without a scratch on his body. Upon Jirioku's emergence, Inoki, the Tsuchikage, said, "You don't have to worry about him getting injured because he is currently considered the strongest person. It may not be wrong to say that he is the most powerful person since the Sengoku era." Listening to Inoki's comment about Jirioku, all the Kages from the previous era, including the Hokage, Mizukage, Reikage, and Kazekage, were quite surprised but were in no condition to talk, as they were overwhelmed by his display of power. The third Reikage then used his signature technique, Hellstab, Four-Finger Nukite, and attacked Jirioku with full force, hoping to test the limits of his strength. Jirioku, with his advanced observation haki, was fully aware of the third Reikage's sudden and fierce attack. Anticipating the move, he countered with his fist, enveloping it in armament haki, internal destruction to maximize the impact. When Jirioku's fist collided with the Reikage's Hellstab, a massive explosion erupted, centered on the two formidable fighters. The shockwave from the collision caused both Jirioku and the Reikage to take several steps back, but it was the Reikage who was forced to retreat the furthest. After regaining his footing, the Reikage examined his hand, noticing cracks formed from the internal damage inflicted by Jirioku's armament haki. With a mix of surprise and respect, the Reikage looked at Jirioku and said, "You managed to injure me in our first collision. I must say, you are very powerful." Jirioku didn't respond to the Reikage's compliment. Instead, he shifted his focus to the second Mizukage, who was standing directly in front of him, ready for the next confrontation. The tension in the air was palpable as the Kages from different eras recognized the extraordinary prowess Jirioku possessed. The second Mizukage said, "Do not be fooled, this is not my real body. This is just an illusion." "You don't have to tell me," replied Jirioku. He embedded gravity into his blade, swung it, and released the Raging Tiger technique. However, he did not swing his sword in front of him where the second Mizukage appeared to be standing. Instead, he swung it to his left. This was confusing for the ordinary ninjas watching the battle from afar, but those familiar with the second Mizukage's abilities were not surprised. They knew the figure in front of Jirioku was merely a mirage created by the second Mizukage Jinjutsu. Jirioku's Raging Tiger move obliterated everything in its path, including rocks, and any obstacles, and directly struck the real second Mizukage and his summoned giant clam, which he was using to perform his illusion technique. The powerful attack shattered the clam's shell, disrupting the Jinjutsu and revealing the Mizukage's true position. As the illusion dissipated, the true form of the second Mizukage became visible to everyone on the battlefield, eliciting gasps of surprise from the onlookers. The second Mizukage managed to escape unharmed from Jirioku's attack by turning his body into water using his hydrification technique. However, his summoned giant clam was not so fortunate. Its outer shell was completely damaged, with multiple cracks appearing on it, causing the giant clam to disappear in a cloud of smoke and leave the battlefield. With the giant clam gone, the extent of the devastation became clear. Not only was the entire ground in the path of Jirioku's attack uprooted, but the surrounding stone structures were also completely destroyed. This demonstrated the immense power contained in Jirioku's attack. The second Mizukage's upper body, which had separated into water, reformed, and he appeared unharmed. He was very surprised and unable to say anything at first, but he began to agree with Inoki's statement about Jirioku's strength. While the Mizukage stood amazed by Jirioku's strength, Jirioku, without wasting any time, increased the gravity around Raza. Raza was suppressed to the point where he couldn't move and was barely able to keep himself from kneeling on the ground with the help of his gold dust. After immobilizing Raza, Jirioku's entire body turned into white smoke as he disappeared and reappeared behind Raza. As Jirioku appeared behind Raza, he sheathed his sword. While doing so, Raza's body separated into many sections, all due to Jirioku's swift and precise attack. Jirioku had cut Raza and moved at such a speed that no one could follow his movements. Of course, if someone had a Mangekyo Sharingan, the outcome might have been different. Jirioku then turned towards Gaara and said, "Seal him as soon as possible before he recovers." Jirioku could have used his black hole technique to make Raza's entire body disappear, but he was uncertain about what would happen to Raza's soul. If the soul were trapped in the black hole for eternity, it would result in hellish torture, which Jirioku did not wish to inflict on anyone. Upon hearing Jirioku's instructions, Gaara immediately began the complex sealing process to contain Raza. While Gaara was sealing Raza, Kabuto observed the battle closely. After noticing that Jirioku did not use his Eye of Death ability, Kabuto was momentarily confused. He analyzed the situation, considering various possibilities. It seems that his ability either has a significant drawback or a specific time limitation, Kabuto speculated. Only after that time period can he use the ability to kill souls. Kabuto continued to observe, intrigued by the limitations and strengths of Jirioku's powers. As the sealing process progressed, the tension on the battlefield remained high. The other ninjas watched with a mix of awe and apprehension, aware that any misstep could turn the tide of the battle. Chapter 217, Gaara, after receiving instructions from Jirioku on how to perform the sealing technique, immediately sealed Raza. Raza was relieved as he wouldn't have to fight anymore against his will, ending the internal conflict he had been struggling with. While Gaara was busy sealing Raza, the intense battle between Jirioku and the combined forces of the Third Raikage and the Second Mizukage continued unabated. The Third Raikage, known for his incredible speed and power, launched an attack on Jirioku with his Hell Stab, two-fingered technique from one side, aiming to pierce through Jirioku's defenses. Simultaneously, from the opposite side, the Second Mizukage attacked with his deadly Water Release, Water-Severing Wave, a technique capable of slicing through almost anything. Jirioku, utilizing his observation haki, easily perceived the incoming attacks from both sides. With a swift and precise movement, he defended against the Third Raikage's attack using his sword, which was imbued with armament haki and crackling with lightning. The collision of their attacks created a massive crater at the center of the battlefield, highlighting the sheer force of their powers. Anticipating the Mizukage's attack, Jirioku knew he couldn't take the water jet cutter head-on. To counter it, he created a gravity barrier. The intense water jet released by the Mizukage was deflected by the gravitational force, dissipating harmlessly around Jirioku. The ability to control gravity, much like that of the Second Mizukage, is incredibly irritating, complained the Mizukage, thoroughly vexed by Jirioku's gravitational prowess. However, Jirioku's mastery over gravity far surpasses that of the Second Mizukage, he added with frustration evident in his voice. He wasn't disappointed that his attack missed Jirioku, in fact, he was quite relieved. His annoyance stemmed from the realization that Jirioku possessed the same gravity-controlling abilities as his arch-nemesis, the Second Mizukage. After the Second Mizukage's attack was deflected, he persisted with his assault due to his automatic attack program. However, he found himself unable to breach the gravity barrier that Jirioku had erected with apparent ease. Jirioku, sensing the resolve of the Third Raikage, made up his mind not to release the gravity barrier until he had dealt with the Raikage himself. With unwavering determination, he stood firm, ready to face whatever onslaught the Raikage could muster. Following his collision with the Third Raikage, Jirioku exerted his formidable strength, pushing the Raikage back several steps. Despite the setback, the Raikage refused to yield, pressing on with his relentless assault. Suddenly, the surrounding pressure shifted, and the Reikage felt as if he were wading through thick swamp rather than standing on solid ground. This was the result of Jirioku's use of the gravity field, which not only suppressed the Reikage's speed but also hampered his movements, making each step feel like a Herculean effort. Jirioku, seizing the opportune moment, expertly infused his sword with armament haki and conqueror's haki. As his blade transformed into a vivid purple hue, crimson lightning crackled around it, the manifestation of conqueror's haki adding to its formidable aura. After meticulously preparing himself, Jirioku unleashed a swift and devastating swing of his sword, resulting in the release of a powerful sword arc. The arc's destructive force obliterated everything in its path until it collided with the third Reikage, engulfing the area in a dense cloud of dust. With a nonchalant gesture, Jirioku effortlessly dispersed the dust with a mighty gust of wind, revealing the severed Edo Tensei body of the Reikage lying on the ground. Turning his attention to Gaara, Jirioku communicated silently, prompting Gaara to understand his intention to inspect the incapacitated third Reikage. Upon completing his task with the third Reikage, Jirioku swiftly redirected his focus towards the second Mizukage. Despite initially standing at a distance, Jirioku suddenly appeared right in front of the Mizukage, catching him off guard. Launching a lightning-infused assault, Jirioku's blade surged towards the Mizukage, who instinctively activated his hydrification technique in an attempt to evade. However, the Mizukage's defense proved futile against the overwhelming power of Jirioku's lightning-infused strike, resulting in a direct hit that left the second Mizukage injured and vulnerable. With Mizukage's injury not being fatal, he was fine, and his body was also easily recovering as it was Edo Tensei. Jirioku, wanting to finish this as soon as possible, flew up into the sky, clenched his fist, and covered it with armament haki and conqueror's haki, along with an immense amount of gravity. The pressure from the gravity was clearly felt by Mizukage, who had difficulty just standing. Jirioku punched downward, shouting "Gravity Universe Punch." As soon as Jirioku punched, a huge dark black fist covered in red lightning started moving downward toward Mizukage, who was currently standing powerless in front of this fist because the closer it came, the more he felt the gravity suppressing him. Soon, the huge black fist struck the second Mizukage. The entire area trembled from Jirioku's attack, and a cloud of dust formed. After the dust settled, Mizukage was seen, but his body was broken, and although it was slowly recovering, it was very slow. Gaara, who had already sealed the third Reikage, didn't wait for Jirioku to instruct him to seal the second Mizukage. Instead, he immediately began to do so. Jirioku, floating in the air, suddenly became alert, and dark black wings appeared from his back. With incredible speed, Jirioku disappeared from his location. The reason for Jirioku's sudden departure was revealed when, as soon as he left, a large translucent cube formed in the location where he was standing, emanating an ominous aura. Chapter 218. This technique is called Dust Release, detachment of the primitive world technique. But who was able to use Dust Release? Until now, there have only been two users, myself and my teacher, the second Mizukage. I haven't used Dust Release, and neither has my teacher. In the middle of speaking, Inoki suddenly realized something and was shocked, which made him quiet. "What is it, Gramps? Why did you suddenly stop speaking?" asked Naruto, confused by Inoki's behavior. "How could I forget this?" said Inoki, astonishment on his face. "Forget what?" asked Gaara. "The second Mizukage has a special ability. He can use fission. He can divide himself into two parts," explained Inoki, a sense of urgency creeping into his tone. "We can also do that with the shadow clone technique," said Naruto matter-of-factly, trying to contribute to the conversation. Inoki shook his head and explained, "No, it is entirely different. The shadow clone gets destroyed the moment it is attacked or damaged. But in the process of fission, one body is divided into two different bodies, and both bodies are genuine human bodies, not fake bodies like shadow clones or any clone technique." "Such a technique exists?" asked Naruto in surprise. "Yes, and only my teacher, the legendary Shinobi Mu, was able to use it. Due to this reason, if someone wants to defeat the second Mizukage, they have to defeat both of his bodies. In the heat of battle while sealing the second Suchikage, I forgot this crucial detail, and it seems that during that time, the second Suchikage separated his other self, said Inoki, with a hint of regret in his voice. While Inoki was explaining the entire process of the fission to the other ninjas, Juryoku floated comfortably in the air, appearing tired as he gazed ahead. It seems you are finally willing to attack. Show yourself, your invisibility doesn't work in front of me. I can clearly feel your presence and your current location, he remarked, his tone firm. Kabuto, who controlled the body of the second Suchikage, did not doubt Juryoku's words in the slightest, as he knew well the extent of Juryoku's sensory abilities. I wasn't expecting you to be damaged by the attack, considering you have the ability to foresee the future, Kabuto said through the second Suchikage, his voice laced with a hint of confidence. Not showing yourself while speaking to me, Juryoku said, his voice tinged with anger. After uttering this, Juryoku swung his sword, releasing a slash that struck the invisible second Suchikage directly. Upon being hit, the second Suchikage materialized on a rocky cliff, visibly startled by the unexpected turn of events. Kabuto spoke through the second Suchikage, his voice echoing with a sinister undertone, I know that no one at the Kage level will be able to defeat you, so allow me to present you with a worthy opponent. Juryoku, with a mix of surprise and anticipation, raised his eyebrow, understanding that Kabuto was finally going to resurrect Uchiha Madara, the legendary shinobi. Juryoku calmly sheathed his sword and stood still, his gaze fixed on Kabuto, waiting for the inevitable moment when Uchiha Madara would be brought back to life. What is he waiting for? Clearly, the second Suchikage is going to resurrect someone else. Instead of standing still, you should be moving forward to stop the process, said one of the captains of the 4th Division, his tone laced with urgency and concern for the impending threat. Who knows? It's not like we can do anything about it. After all, he is the strongest, so he can do whatever he pleases, remarked another ninja present, his voice tinged with resignation, acknowledging the overwhelming power of their adversaries. Shut up. You are not allowed to comment on Lord Juryoku. You all should be grateful that you are alive because of him. If it were not for his intervention when the number of casualties increased exponentially, said Temari, her words carrying a note of authority and gratitude towards Juryoku's past deeds in safeguarding their lives. Everyone fell silent after hearing Temari's reprimand, acknowledging the undeniable truth in her words. The weight of her statement hung in the air, causing a palpable tension among those present. As the second Suchikage began forming hand seals, Gaara observed, it seems he's summoning someone, and if I'm not mistaken, it's most likely Edo Tensei. His voice carried a mix of concern and apprehension. You're absolutely right, affirmed Inoki, his tone grave, betraying his unease at the unfolding events. Shouldn't we prevent him from summoning another Edo Tensei? Naruto asked, poised to attack the second Suchikage. His sense of urgency was evident in his stance, ready to act at a moment's notice. Don't be rash. You know as well as I do that Juryoku detests interference in his matters, Gaara cautioned, restraining Naruto from attacking. His words held a note of warning, urging caution in the face of potential danger. But before Naruto could finish his sentence, the second Suchikage completed his hand seals, and a coffin emerged from the ground, standing upright. The ground trembled slightly under the weight of the rising coffin, adding to the tense atmosphere. All eyes eagerly fixed on the coffin, awaiting the revelation of its occupant. Anticipation mixed with apprehension as they braced themselves for whatever might emerge from within. Finally, the lid of the coffin creaked open, revealing a figure clad in red armor, with long black hair cascading down his back, and two ominous red Mangekyo Sharingan gleaming in his eyes. Though anticipation had gripped everyone, as the man emerged from the coffin, a collective wave of confusion swept over the assembly. No one, except for two individuals, could discern the identity of the enigmatic figure. Inoki, with years of experience etched into his withered face, and Juryoku, who remained stoic amidst the tension, were the only ones who recognized the mysterious newcomer. In the eerie silence of the battlefield, Inoki, the eldest among them, found his voice trembling as he uttered, "You, Madara." His words hung heavy in the air, laden with the weight of history and foreboding. Chapter 219, What? He is Uchiha Madara, exclaimed Temari, her eyes wide with shock. Gramps, are you serious? Asked Naruto, disbelief evident in his voice. Are you sure, Tsuchikage, that this person is Uchiha Madara? Asked Gaara, his tone urgent and wary. Inoki said with confidence, Yes, I can never forget those eyes and this face. He is definitely Uchiha Madara without a doubt. Everyone became nervous after confirming that the person who had just been resurrected was none other than Uchiha Madara. The name Uchiha Madara caused a wave of nervousness to go through the entire ninja army present. Murmurs and whispers spread quickly among the ranks as the gravity of the situation set in. Everyone's eyes were on Uchiha Madara, and they were eager to see what his next move would be. The tension in the air was palpable, and the ninja army braced themselves for whatever was to come. It seems he finally managed to groom that brat Nagato, said Madara, observing the situation with a hint of satisfaction. Finally, I succeeded in resurrecting you using Edo Tensei, said the second Tsuchikage, a note of triumph in his voice. What did you just say? I have been resurrected through Edo Tensei? Asked Madara in confusion, his eyes narrowing. Yes, you are correct. I resurrected you through Edo Tensei, replied Kabuto, stepping forward with a confident smile. It seems everything is not going as planned. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been resurrected like this, said Uchiha Madara, his tone contemplative and wary. You are absolutely correct, Madara-sama. Everything is completely out of control, said Kabuto, his voice tinged with a mix of respect and defiance. And who are you exactly? Asked Madara, turning his piercing gaze towards Kabuto. I am Kabuto, the one who used Edo Tensei to resurrect you, said Kabuto, meeting Madara's gaze with unwavering confidence. What have you done to my body? Asked Madara in confusion. He knew very well that he was an old man before dying, but right now he was almost in his prime. It took him just a moment to realize that his body had been significantly modified. He flexed his fingers, feeling an immense surge of power coursing through his veins. I just made a few changes to you, and now you are even more powerful than in your glory days, said Kabuto, a sly smile on his face. Have you seen my strength in my glory days? Asked Madara with disdain in his voice, his eyes narrowing as he scrutinized Kabuto. I haven't, that's what I want to see, replied Kabuto, his eyes gleaming with curiosity and anticipation. Madara then looked towards the ninjas of the allied shinobi forces and asked, their headbands say shinobi, but I see the attire of all 5 ninja villages. Is this some kind of alliance? His tone was a mixture of curiosity and contempt, as he assessed the gathered forces. Yes, Uchiha Bito has declared war on all the major ninja villages. That's why they formed this alliance to fight against him, said Kabuto, his tone calm but serious. You know Obito's identity? Asked Madara, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. He never expected anyone to know Obito's true identity. It's not just me. The whole world knows the real identity of Uchiha Bito, replied Kabuto with a sly smile. Something is very wrong. Obito would never have revealed his identity willingly. Is he so incompetent that he can't even keep his identity a secret? Said Madara, confusion evident in his voice. It's not that he's incompetent. The point is that he was up against the world's strongest person, after all, said Kabuto, his eyes gleaming with a hidden knowledge. Huh? World's strongest? Did Hashirama get resurrected or what? Asked Madara, his surprise turning into curiosity. According to Madara, there is only one person who can hold the title of the world's strongest, and that person is Senju Hashirama, the legendary first Hokage. No, not at all. That person is not Senju Hashirama. Look in front of you, there he is, the world's strongest person, said Kabuto, pointing directly at Jirioku with his hand. Madara looked in the direction Kabuto pointed and saw Jirioku, who was also looking at Madara. With just one glance, Madara could tell that Jirioku was not someone he could underestimate. The intensity in Jirioku's eyes and the aura he exuded were undeniable. Madara turned towards the second Tsuchikage and asked, he really seems to be very powerful. Tell me more about him. There are many deeds that have earned him the title of the world's strongest, but one stands out the most, his one-on-one battle with Azura, the elder son of the Sage of Six Paths, said Kabuto. What? Madara was utterly shocked after hearing what Kabuto said. Isn't the eldest son of the Sage of Six Paths, Azura, dead hundreds of years ago? Asked Madara. Understanding Madara's confusion, Kabuto explained everything concisely. You are correct. Azura did die hundreds of years ago, but his body was preserved inside Mount Maiboku. When Jirioku attacked Mount Maiboku out of rage, the Sage of Six Paths resurrected his son through an unknown method. Then, a battle between Jirioku and Azura occurred, with Jirioku emerging as the victor. Although he won, he was exhausted at the end of the battle with Azura. Despite his weakened state, he was able to easily overpower the Akatsuki, who attempted to finish him off, considering him a significant obstacle to their plans. However, they were unable to capture the weakened Jirioku. All of this transpired almost 4 years ago, and in these 4 years, it is said that he has become even more powerful. Currently, no one knows the full extent of his strength. Chapter 220, Madara, upon hearing how Jirioku defeated Azura, was left speechless. After organizing his thoughts, Madara asked, So, none of the tailed beasts have been captured yet? Kabuto replied, Akatsuki has captured all the tailed beasts except for the Nine Tails. Is he from Konoha? Madara inquired further. Madara asked this because, according to him, if the Nine Tails remains uncaptured and belongs to Konoha, then it only means one thing, Jirioku is protecting the Nine Tails. Kabuto responded, You are partially correct. He did belong to Konoha in the past, but due to certain circumstances, he left the village. Then why hasn't the Nine Tails been captured yet? Madara asked in confusion. Kabuto explained, It is well known that the other tailed beasts that have been captured were spared due to Jirioku's mercy. If Jirioku wanted, he could have annihilated Akatsuki whenever he wished. However, he has his own plans, which no one knows yet, and that is why he is letting Akatsuki act as they please. Madara pondered this information, realizing that Jirioku's mysterious motives were complicating the situation more than he had anticipated. It seems that you are correct. Nothing is going according to plan. I need to meet him as soon as possible, said Madara. Who this him referred to was not known to anyone else present. By the way, if he is this powerful, then he must have some unique ability, continued Madara. Kabuto replied, That is the case. He is a master swordsman, and not just an ordinary one. With every simple sword slash, he can cause a lot of destruction. His main ability, which makes him unique, is his control over gravity. Similar to the Tsuchikage, asked Madara, referencing the formidable abilities of the current Tsuchikage, known for his manipulation of gravity. Not just superior to the Tsuchikage, but far superior to them, said Kabuto. Just as Kabuto was about to elaborate, a sudden wave of sand erupted from both sides, attempting to capture Madara Uchiha. The sand was controlled by Gaara, the fifth Kazekage, known for his unparalleled sand manipulation abilities. Madara and the second Tsuchikage, Mu, easily dodged the attack by jumping away. It seems that right now I have only one option, and that is to fight and defeat everyone here, said Madara as he landed on the ground, his eyes gleaming with determination. Attack him! Do not fear him, and do not look into his eyes, commanded Inoki, his voice resolute and urgent. The nervous ninjas, their hearts pounding, began to move forward to attack Madara, gripping their weapons tightly. Jirioku stood there without moving an inch, watching everything very calmly. His eyes followed the movements of each ninja. He was in no hurry to take action. It wasn't that he wanted to see these ninjas die, but he needed to recover his stamina after fighting all the Edo Tensei Kages. His breath was steady, yet he could feel the exhaustion in his muscles. Inoki and Gaara, both exhausted from their own battles and also wanting to give Jirioku a chance to rest, ordered the ninjas to attack Madara. They knew they had to buy time. Madara, having heard all the stories about Jirioku's strength and previous battles, also started moving forward, ready to face the ninjas head-on. His Sharingan eyes were sharp, and his presence was intimidating. Although he was wary of Juryoku, he was not someone who would cower in fear. Instead, he welcomed the challenge with a fierce grin. Madara moved at a very fast speed and collided with the ninja army alone. With his superior physical strength, experience, and Sharingan, Madara advanced through the ninja army, killing the ninjas with ease, as if a dragon were passing through a herd of deer, slaughtering them. Watching Madara destroy the allied shinobi forces as if they were nothing, Temari became enraged and attacked him with her wind-release technique, Kamaitachi. The powerful gusts of wind caught Madara off guard and sent him flying. "Do not underestimate us," said Temari, her voice filled with determination. Madara stood back up, dusted off the dirt from his clothes, and glared at Temari. Without hesitation, he used fire release to create a huge wave of fire, Katon, Gokumakyaku, as large as the ninja army. "The range of this ninjutsu is enormous," someone observed with alarm. "Water-style users, move forward and use water release," another commanded urgently. Watching the fire ninjutsu released by Madara, every ninja of the allied shinobi forces was flustered. But before the water release ninjas could perform their technique, Juryoku appeared in front of the allied shinobi forces. In his hand, a small black hole materialized, sucking in 80% of the flames released by Madara. The battlefield was filled with tension as the allied shinobi forces braced themselves for the next move. Madara looked at Juryoku, who had appeared in front of him, with a solemn expression. "Chakra absorption? No, this is not chakra absorption," Madara thought. The entire gravity around the fire was controlled, and the fire was sucked inside that black hole. Now, Madara understood why Kabuto had said Juryoku's control over gravity was far superior to that of the Tsuchikage. The Tsuchikage's gravity control was child's play compared to Juryoku's mastery. Chapter 221, Madara realized that ninjutsu would be useless against Juryoku, as Juryoku could absorb it. Thus, he chose to engage in close combat instead. "Madara, I forgot to mention one thing," warned the second Tsuchikage, Kabuto. "Juryoku possesses another unique ability, a dojutsu. With this dojutsu, he can slay any soul he chooses. It's with this power that he was able to destroy the Edo Tensei of that body. Be careful." Madara was completely shocked upon hearing this. Now, while fighting Juryoku, he knew he had to be extremely cautious to avoid being killed by him. Juryoku turned to face the second Tsuchikage, Kabuto, swinging his sword in a wide arc. A powerful wave of energy surged from the blade. The second Tsuchikage had no choice but to evade the attack, successfully disappearing from sight. With the immediate threat gone, Juryoku redirected his attention to Madara, though he had no intention of confronting or killing him, at least not yet. Although Madara heard Kabuto's warning about the dangers of engaging Juryoku in close combat, he noticed the sealed individuals around him. Observing these sealed people, Madara deduced that Juryoku's dojutsu might either not be working at the moment or have limitations he wasn't aware of. Therefore, Madara didn't hesitate and attacked Juryoku with a sword he had taken from one of the ninjas fighting him. Juryoku responded swiftly, and his sword clashed with Madara's in a fierce collision. The impact was so intense that it created a crater around their point of contact, a testament to the sheer power behind their strikes. As the dust settled, it was evident that Madara had been pushed back slightly, a clear indication that he was physically inferior to Juryoku. Refusing to give up, Madara launched another attack, his sword slicing through the air with relentless determination. In response, Juryoku focused his energy, channeling gravity itself into his sword. With this newfound power, he met Madara's assault head-on, their swords clashing again in a display of extraordinary strength and skill. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the battle raged on, each warrior pushing their limits in this epic confrontation. Juryoku unleashed the gravity blade. The moment Madara's sword collided with Juryoku's weapon, it was instantly destroyed. A tremendous gravitational force pressed down on Madara, overwhelming him with its intensity. He struggled to resist, but before he could make any move, the gravity became too powerful. It crushed everything around him, including the ground beneath his feet. A massive pit began to form, expanding rapidly as the pressure intensified. In a matter of seconds, the entire area was engulfed, with Madara at its center, completely suppressed and trapped inside the deep, newly formed chasm. Madara was struggling to stand, completely overwhelmed by Jiraiya's gravity suppression. Each attempt to rise felt like pushing against an immovable force. Just as Madara was about to activate his Susanoo, hoping to use its immense power to break free from the crushing gravity, the second Tsuchikage appeared to aid him. With a swift and powerful move, the second Tsuchikage unleashed his formidable dust release technique, aiming directly at Jiraiya. The sudden attack caught Jiraiya off guard, leaving him no choice but to dodge the incoming assault. This critical moment provided Madara with the opportunity he needed, and he was finally freed from the oppressive gravity suppression. "You're as annoying as a fly," Jiraiya said angrily after dodging the second Tsuchikage's attack. The second Tsuchikage vanished again using his jutsu. Relying solely on observation haki would have been problematic for Jiraiya, but he had evolved his sensory abilities with the help of gravity. By sensing changes in the gravitational field around him, he could pinpoint the location of a person. Jiraiya named this technique Gravity Sense. Jiraiya effortlessly pinpointed Mu's location, sprouting two wings as he soared swiftly towards him. With remarkable speed, he materialized in front of the invisible Mu, delivering a powerful punch. Mu, now visible, was hurled to the ground, his face taking the brunt of the impact. Without hesitation, Jiraiya descended with immense force, stomping on Mu's face, rendering him immobile. "Seal him as well," Jiraiya commanded before swiftly departing towards Madara. Gaara, acting swiftly, proceeded to seal Mu without delay. Madara emerged from the pit, and the first sight that greeted him was Mu being sealed by Gaara. Next, his gaze fell upon Jiraiya, who had appeared before him. Madara now realized without a doubt that he couldn't contend with Jiraiya in close combat. If he didn't employ his Rinnegan, Jiraiya could effortlessly defeat him. Only with the Rinnegan could he withstand Jiraiya's gravity-related abilities. Madara, being cautious, prefers not to reveal his Rinnegan prematurely. Upon summoning his Susanoo, Madara wielded two short swords that materialized in its hands. He proceeded to cross the swords before him, unleashing two sword energies in a formidable cross formation, with astonishing speed aimed directly at Jiraiya. Reacting swiftly, Jiraiya erected a gravity barrier around himself, though its defense proved insufficient to entirely impede the sword arcs. Despite their passage through the barrier, their potency was significantly diminished. Undeterred, Jiraiya countered by swinging his own sword, unleashing a black sword arc that effectively obliterated the cross-sword arcs unleashed by Madara. Chapter 222. Madara knew that his attack would not be very effective, but he did not expect it to be resolved so easily. The realization that his powerful strike had been effortlessly countered gnawed at him, and he tightened his grip on his weapon, eyes narrowing with a mix of frustration and determination. After nullifying Madara's attack, Jiraiya shifted his stance, drawing in a deep breath as he concentrated gravitational energy onto his sword. The air around him seemed to distort and tremble under the immense power he was gathering. With a fierce battle cry, Jiraiya unleashed his move, Raging Tiger. The sheer force of his attack created a massive black sword slash that tore through the battlefield, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake as it hurtled towards Madara. Madara stood his ground, his Susanoo blazing with a spectral blue light, its massive form towering protectively around him. He braced himself, muscles tensing, ready to absorb the incoming assault. The clash was inevitable, and he steeled his resolve, knowing the impact would be tremendous. The sword energy collided with Madara's Susanoo with a thunderous roar, the force of the attack reverberating through the air. The impact was devastating, the upper left half of the Susanoo shattered into pieces, fragments of its spectral armor scattering like glass. Madara's eyes widened in shock, disbelief washing over him as he took in the sight of his once formidable defense being so easily obliterated. "How could this happen?" he muttered, his voice barely audible over the chaos of the battlefield. The ease with which his Susanoo had been destroyed was a harsh reminder of Jiraiya's overwhelming power. Madara quickly regained his composure, channeling his energy to reconstruct his Susanoo. The spectral form reassembled itself, the pieces knitting back together under his will. Rage simmered within Madara. The fact that his Susanoo had been unable to withstand a single attack from Jiraiya was a blow to his pride. Determined to turn the tide of the battle, he poured more of his chakra into the Susanoo, reinforcing its structure. With a fierce cry, the Susanoo grew 2 additional arms, bringing the total to 4. The transformation didn't stop there. The half-body humanoid form expanded and solidified, becoming a full-body humanoid form, radiating an even more intimidating presence. The battlefield crackled with tension as Madara's enhanced Susanoo loomed over Jiraiya. "You will not defeat me so easily," Madara declared, his voice echoing with newfound resolve. The two warriors faced each other, the air thick with the promise of an even more intense clash. While Madara was enhancing his Susanoo, Jiraiya seized the opportunity to move in front of the massive spectral warrior, ready to launch an attack. As soon as Madara completed his preparations, he immediately commanded the 4 arms of his Susanoo, each wielding a sword, to strike at Jiraiya in a synchronized assault. Jiraiya, undaunted by the colossal size of the Susanoo, fearlessly stood his ground. His own sword met the giant blades with an unwavering resolve. Despite the significant disparity in size, Jiraiya was not at a disadvantage. His skill and strength allowed him to hold his position, parrying and deflecting the enormous swords without yielding an inch. Realizing that a direct confrontation with the Susanoo would be futile without employing a more powerful technique, Jiraiya took a few swift steps back, creating some distance between himself and the towering entity. His strategic retreat was not out of fear but out of tactical prudence. With a focused breath, Jiraiya entered the gale-release chakra mode. His entire body became enveloped in swirling white winds interspersed with crackling lightning, a dazzling display of elemental power. The wind whipped around him, and arcs of lightning danced across his form, amplifying his already formidable presence. Madara, with his Mangekyo Sharingan activated, observed Jiraiya closely. The unique combination of wind and lightning chakra piqued his interest. "Is this some kind of Kekkai Genkai?" he muttered to himself. Having encountered countless jutsus and techniques in his lifetime, Madara recognized the distinctive nature of Jiraiya's abilities. He surmised that Jiraiya was harnessing a rare and potent Kekkai Genkai, a bloodline trait that combined the properties of both wind and lightning elements. The battlefield crackled with anticipation as the two warriors prepared for their next moves. Madara's Susanoo, now fully enhanced and armed with 4 deadly swords, loomed menacingly. In contrast, Jiraiya, shrouded in his elemental aura, stood ready to unleash his next powerful technique. Jiraiya took a sword-drawing stance, his eyes narrowing with focus. In an instant, he disappeared from his location, his form turning into a streak of white light due to his incredible speed. The white light darted toward the Susanoo, moving with such velocity that it seemed to slice through the air itself. This luminous streak weaved through the Susanoo, creating a crisscross pattern all over its massive form. The white light stopped abruptly behind the Susanoo, and as it did, Jiraiya's previously invisible figure gradually became visible again. He stood calmly, his back to the Susanoo, and with a composed grace, he sheathed his sword without looking back. The moment his blade clicked into its sheath, numerous white lines appeared on the Susanoo. These lines marked the precise cuts made by Jiraiya's sword, each slice perfectly executed. Chapter 223, a moment of silence hung in the air before the Susanoo began to disintegrate along these lines. The once mighty and imposing spectral warrior crumbled into fragments, the sheer destructive power of Jiraiya's technique lay bare. Madara stood there, staring blankly as his Susanoo was completely destroyed. The shock and disbelief were evident on his face, he had never witnessed such speed and precision before. Madara was stunned by Jiraiya's incredible speed. The swift movements had been so fast that even with his advanced perception, he could barely track Jiraiya's actions, let alone react to them. If he had not been using the Susanoo, he might have been able to dodge the attack, but encased within the massive construct, evasion was impossible. As the dust settled, Madara's mind raced. He understood that Jirioku was an opponent unlike any he had faced before. The combination of speed, power, and precision was overwhelming. Madara's eyes flickered with determination. The battle was far from over, and he knew he had to adapt quickly to counter the formidable warrior before him. Madara turned towards Jirioku, who had also just turned to face him. "I must say," Madara began, his voice carrying a grudging respect, "you are the fastest person I have ever encountered. Your speed is on a whole different level." Jirioku responded with a calm, composed tone, "But you were able to follow my movements, right?" Madara nodded thoughtfully. From this collision, Madara understood one crucial thing: Jirioku was not someone to be trifled with. In fact, Jirioku's power and skill seemed to rival that of Hashirama, if not surpass it. Realizing that his current form of Susanoo was ineffective, Madara decided to escalate the battle further. He began to summon another form of Susanoo, the armored Susanoo. Jirioku watched this transformation with a serene demeanor, doing nothing to interrupt Madara's preparations. He stood firm, allowing Madara to prepare his best move, fully confident that he, Jirioku, would crush all of Madara's seemingly invincible techniques with his own. As Madara constructed his armored Susanoo, Jirioku also began to prepare for his next move. He concentrated a massive amount of gravitational energy around him. The gravity was so intense that the ground within a 10-meter radius of Jirioku sank several feet. Gradually, this concentrated gravity began to channel into Jirioku's sword, turning the entire blade a deep, ominous black. Madara's armored Susanoo stood ready, its towering form even more imposing than the previous humanoid Susanoo, now nearly 1.5 times taller. The spectral armor glinted menacingly, its presence a testament to Madara's unmatched chakra control and strength. Finally, after a tense minute of preparation, both warriors stood ready with their ultimate moves. The air crackled with energy and anticipation. Madara's towering armored Susanoo glowed with an eerie, potent light, while Jirioku's sword, now a solid black mass of concentrated gravity, seemed to hum with barely contained power. The stage was set for an epic clash. Madara's eyes locked onto Jirioku's, both understanding that the next moments would decide the outcome of this fierce battle. What kind of moves are they both preparing? These moves seemed to be very destructive. Voices like these reverberated throughout the battlefield, a mixture of awe and fear evident among the onlookers. "Everyone calm down. And move even further from the battle area of both of them," ordered Gaara. His voice carried authority and concern, understanding the sheer scale of the impending clash. Following Gaara's command, the ninjas hastily increased the distance between themselves and Jirioku, recognizing the imminent danger. "Now Madara Uchiha is starting to get serious," said Inoki, his expression solemn. The veteran ninja's eyes were fixed on the battlefield, aware of the gravity of the situation. He had seen countless battles, but this one felt different, more intense. Jirioku raised his sword parallel to the ground, holding it steady for a moment. With a determined expression, he then swung it vertically downward, channeling all his strength into his most powerful sword technique, Dimension Slash. As he executed the move, a flash of black light illuminated the area, and in that brief instant, everything in the sword's path was cleaved in two with remarkable precision. Madara, who was encased in his formidable Susanoo armor, was sliced in half before he even had a chance to react. The sheer force and speed of the attack left him completely defenseless. The Susanoo, which had provided him with so much protection, began to split apart vertically. Gradually, the mighty armor disintegrated until it was destroyed completely, leaving Madara exposed. In the aftermath of the attack, Madara must be feeling an overwhelming sense of relief for having been resurrected through Edo Tensei. If this had been his real body, he would have surely met his demise at that very moment. His plan, which he had meticulously crafted, would have been thwarted, leaving him with no way to continue. Thanks to Edo Tensei, however, he has been given another chance to pursue his ambitions. Chapter 224. After being cut in half, Madara didn't say anything harsh and retreated. He knew from numerous close combats that he was no match for Jirioku in close combat. So without hesitation, he retreated. As Madara retreated, Jiraiya sheathed his sword and calmly looked at Madara's retreating figure. Madara looked at Jiraiya, made a hand seal, and two-faced Susanoo rose around him. Both sides of Susanoo also made hand seals. After he finished preparing, he said to Jiraiya, "Let me show you the power of a god." As soon as Madara finished speaking, the Susanoo disappeared, and everything returned to calm. What was that? He was bluffing, wasn't he? I don't know, but I don't think someone like Madara would bluff. Everyone present was totally confused because just before the Susanoo disappeared, Madara said he would show the power of a god, but nothing of that sort happened. Just as everyone was feeling confused, the surroundings suddenly became dark. Thinking that a cloud might have come, most of the ninjas looked towards the sky. When they did, they saw a huge meteorite falling from above. With a nervous laugh, one of the ninjas said, "Ha, ha. Is this ninjutsu? We are done for." "How can we even stop this?" said another. Gaara looked shocked and said, "Is this the power of a god?" Everyone present, except for Jiraiya and Madara, had a look of fear and uncertainty on their faces. Madara didn't even bother to look at the panicked ninjas. His eyes were fixed on Jiraiya, waiting to see what Jiraiya would do to counter his attack. Jiraiya slowly started floating towards the sky and pointed his sword at the falling meteor. On the tip of Jiraiya's sword, a small black hole formed and began getting bigger and bigger. When this black hole became as large as 1 meter in diameter, Jiraiya stopped and said, "Black hole thrust." Jiraiya, with incredible speed, moved towards the falling meteor. With his sword, Jiraiya tore through the first meteor and then the second meteor, which was just above the first one. For a short period, the meteor was not clearly visible as a large amount of gray dust surrounded it. But it didn't take long for the meteor to become visible again. The meteor, which became visible again, was now in the shape of a donut as the center part was gone, leaving only a thin outline. The remaining part of the donut-shaped meteor started cracking and slowly got destroyed. Since the middle part of the meteor was swallowed whole by the black hole, there was no issue. However, as the outer part of the meteor was not swallowed by the black hole, it began cracking and raining rocks on the ninjas. "All of you, prepare for impact. Destroy the rocks in the air as soon as possible," ordered Gaara. "Yes," responded all the ninjas with determination on their faces, ready to destroy the falling rocks. But just as the rocks were about to hit the ground, they suddenly stopped and floated in the air. Everyone was confused about how this happened, but one of the ninjas saw Jiraiya floating freely in the air and noticed that all the stones were slowly gathering towards him. "It's Jiraiya-sama, who is controlling the stones." "Look," pointed the ninja. When the ninja pointed and reminded everyone, they looked towards the sky and saw a spectacular scene. All the stones were gathering above Jiraiya and slowly taking the shape of a sphere. "How can he defeat one of my best moves so easily? He gives me the same feeling I had when I fought Hashirama." "No, to be precise, he is even more powerful," said Madara in shock. Madara himself was in disbelief that he would ever say such a thing. As Madara stared at Jiraiya in disbelief, Naruto and Gaara were also looking at Madara in astonishment. "How does this Madara guy have the same renegade eyes that Pervy Sage's student Nagato had?" asked Naruto, incredulous. "Right? This surprised me too," said Gaara, confusion and shock visible on his face. Jiraiya controlled the sphere formed from the broken stones and hurled it into space. He knew it would be useless to attack Madara with the sphere, so he didn't throw it at him. Another reason for not throwing the stone sphere was that if he did, he would again have to protect the ninjas present, and he wasn't there to babysit the ninjas of the allied shinobi forces. After throwing the stone sphere into space, Jiraiya moved with blinding speed and attacked Madara. Prepared for Jiraiya's attack, Madara immediately used Almighty Push. As Jiraiya, already very close to Madara, felt resistance in the air and a force trying to push him back due to the Almighty Push. However, Jiraiya, who was always covered in a layer of concentrated gravity, was not pushed back. A gap formed between Jiraiya and Madara, and the ground around them cracked due to the intense force of gravity. Chapter 225, Jirioku said, playing with gravity in front of me is foolish, you know. As soon as Jirioku's voice fell, he used gravity push. The moment Jirioku used gravity push, Madara was sent flying back, as Jirioku's gravity push was far superior to the almighty push used by Madara. Madara's almighty push was like a wave in the ocean, whereas Jirioku's gravity push was like a tsunami. Madara, who was sent flying backward, was followed by Jirioku. In midair, Jirioku punched Madara, sending him even further back. With this move, Jirioku's intention was crystal clear. He was trying to take Madara away from the battlefield. He seems to be taking Madara away from the battlefield, said Naruto, looking at the retreating figures of Jirioku and Madara, who was being hit by Jirioku. Gaara replied, "We must be holding him back, as we are weak compared to Madara and Jirioku. I feel that they both have not started fighting with their full strength. If they do, the level of destruction will also increase, meaning the ninjas of the allied shinobi forces will be affected." He even thinks about the ninjas. "That's a surprise," said Naruto jokingly. "Whatever may have been the case in the past, right now he is fighting for us. I can't even imagine the amount of destruction Madara alone would have caused if Jirioku were not here," said Inoki, shivering at the thought of how many ninjas might have been killed by Madara. "I agree. Just that big meteor that fell from the sky would have been more than enough to wipe out most of the allied shinobi forces," said Gaara, agreeing with Inoki. Although Naruto doesn't like Jirioku that much, he also agreed with both Gaara and Inoki. At this time, Naruto asked, "So, are we going to wait here or follow Jirioku?" Inoki replied immediately without any hesitation, "Of course we are going to the place near the battle between Madara and Jirioku. Although with our strength we can't interfere much in the battle between Jirioku and Madara, at the very least we can support Jirioku if he needs our help at some critical point." After the decision was made, all three of them started moving in the direction where Madara and Jirioku had gone. Before leaving, Gaara handed command of the army to his sister, Temari. Just as Inoki, Gaara, and Naruto had traveled a few hundred meters, Dodai caught up to them and called out, "Wait, Tsuchikage and Kazekage." Inoki, Gaara, and Naruto stopped in their tracks. Gaara asked, "What happened? Is there something important?" Dodai replied, "Yes, Shikaku Jonin wants to talk to you." After hearing this, Inoki said to Gaara, "You both go ahead. I will follow immediately after reporting everything." Gaara and Naruto nodded and left immediately. Once they had gone, Inoki gestured to Dodai to connect him to Shikaku. Dodai did so, and Shikaku's urgent voice reached Inoki. Shikaku asked, "Tsuchikage, a few minutes ago, AO of the Sensor Division detected the presence of a very powerful character with immense chakra, excluding Jirioku. When talking with Dodai, he informed us that this presence is none other than Madara Uchiha. Is this correct?" "Yes, what Dodai told you is absolutely correct. The new Edo Tensei summoned by Kabuto is none other than Madara Uchiha. I lived in the era of Madara, so no one can tell you better than I can that this person is indeed Madara Uchiha," said Inoki. Inoki then described how Jirioku fought with Madara and how Madara nearly destroyed the entire allied shinobi forces on his own. He vividly recounted the entire process. After he finished, Inoki said, "Now I should go and see the battle between Jirioku and Madara." Inoki finished speaking and immediately left the place. In the headquarters of the allied shinobi forces, Shikaku stood up after being disconnected from Inoki. As soon as Shikaku was free, Tsunade asked, "What is the news? Is it really Uchiha Madara?" "Yes, it has been confirmed, and that Tsuchikage is the one who confirmed it," said Shikaku. "We should leave immediately," said Reikage, standing up from his seat. "I don't think it is that urgent, as Jirioku is fighting Madara, and not only is he fighting, but he is also dominating the battle with Madara Uchiha," said Shikaku. After saying this, Shikaku described in detail how Jirioku had dominated Madara throughout the battle. This did not come as a surprise to anyone present because they had either witnessed the process themselves or heard how Jirioku had previously defeated Asura in a one-on-one, transcendent level battle. After listening to this, Reikage said, now I think we should join the battle. Jirioku has taken care of one front, so we can focus on eliminating Obito Uchiha once and for all and be done with this conflict. Tsunade contemplated Reikich's words and agreed with him. Chapter 226. Where was Obito last seen? Asked Reikich to Shikaku. Obito was last seen fighting with Naruto's real body and Kakashi, replied Shikaku immediately. I see. We will leave immediately for the battlefield. Inform Mizukichi that it is now unnecessary to protect the daimyos and tell her to join us in the battle, ordered Tsunade. Shikaku nodded and said, yes, this will be for the best. The battle is at its peak, so Obito will not leave the battlefield, or else it will be overturned. Except for him, no one can threaten the safety of the daimyos. I don't think he will need any daimyo, as the main daimyo, the Fire Country daimyo, is under Jirioku's protection. Without capturing the Fire daimyo, Obito can't even think of making a surrender. Okay then, let's get going. We have no time to waste, said Tsunade as she left immediately with the Reikichi from the headquarters. Obito, who was fighting Naruto and Kakashi, was having a very difficult time handling them both, as they knew his weakness and were able to counter his movements. If it were not for the help of his Rinnegan, he wouldn't have been able to hold on for this long. At that moment, a white Zetsu appeared behind him and said, Obito, Lord Madara has been resurrected with the help of Edo Tensei by Kabuto. Currently, Lord Madara is in combat with Jirioku and is clearly at a disadvantage. He is totally surprised in the fight by Jirioku. Obito's eyes widened in surprise, understanding that this must be the doing of Black Zetsu. In a way, he was also relieved because Madara was the only one capable of holding Jirioku back. The voice of White Zetsu was heard by Naruto and Kakashi, who received the news about what was happening. And one more thing, the 5th Hokage and 4th Reikichi are on their way to the battlefield, said White Zetsu, dropping another bombshell. Damn it, it seems you only bring bad news, said Obito. He knew that if the other 2 Kages arrived, it would become increasingly difficult for him to fight them all at once. No, it can't go like this. I need to implement my plan as soon as possible, thought Obito. He was no fool to think he could defeat 2 Kages on his own. He hadn't forgotten that Naruto, who stood in front of him, was also on the same level as the Kages. Not to mention, Kakashi was also someone capable of harming him. It's a good thing that Hokage-sama and Reikichi are arriving on the battlefield, said Kakashi, feeling relieved after hearing the news. Almighty Push! Obito used Almighty Push to repel all the ninjas in front of him. As soon as he created distance, he used Kamui to leave the battlefield. After Obito left, White Zetsu immediately departed using the Mayfly technique. What the hell? Where did he run off to? Said Naruto in disbelief. He hadn't expected Obito to run away. It seems he got scared by the arrival of the Kages, said Kakashi thoughtfully. Maybe that's the case, but we shouldn't be careless. Otherwise, we might suffer, continued Kakashi. I know. We should also keep an eye on the different battlefield regions, as Obito might appear somewhere else, said Naruto. You're right, said Kakashi. He immediately went to one of the sensory ninjas to inform the headquarters about Obito's status. When Shikaku received the news, he immediately informed all the battlefields and instructed them to be on high alert, as Obito might appear at any of them. Soon after he relayed the information about Obito, he received an urgent message from Ino. Ino reported from 1st Division, Obito has arrived on our battlefield, and he is not alone. He is here with the Gedo statue. What? Do you need support? Asked Shikaku anxiously. Do not worry, Uncle Shikaku. You are forgetting that we are not the same as before, replied Ino confidently. Okay, take care and let me know if you need anything, said Shikaku. Ino smiled sweetly and said, okay. She then terminated the connection with Shikaku, as she had a major threat in front of her in the form of Obito and the Gedo statue. The Gedo statue, summoned by Obito, roared like a wild beast and stomped on the ground, killing a few ninjas in the process. All of you, retreat from in front of the Gedo statue, ordered Choza. As Choza was the superior, all the ninjas immediately retreated without wasting any time. As the ninjas retreated, Choji used gigantification to become enormous and engaged in a physical brawl with the Ten Tails. Although his chakra-enhanced fists were powerful enough to destroy small hills, they couldn't inflict even the slightest damage on the Gedo statue. However, his attacks were not entirely useless, as they managed to push the Gedo statue back many times. Annoyed by Choji's interference, the Gedo statue became angry and launched a lightning attack at him, causing significant damage and pushing him back. Choji was left charred all over his body from the attack. Chapter 227. However, Choji, with his high regenerative ability, quickly healed his entire body. Enraged by his injury from the Gedo statue, Choji grew even larger, surpassing the size of the statue. Now 1.5 times bigger than the Gedo statue, Choji grabbed it with both hands and slammed it to the ground with a thunderous shout of HAHHH. As Choji slammed the Gedo statue to the ground, the entire area shook, making all the ninjas feel as if a massive earthquake had struck. While Choji was fighting the Gedo statue, Obito appeared in front of Darui and said, "So you have the tools in which the Gold and Silver brothers are sealed." Darui immediately became alert upon seeing Obito and said, "So this is your purpose for coming to the First Division. It seems you want to free the Gold and Silver brothers from the seal." Everyone had been confused about the reason for Obito's arrival on the battlefield, but now it was crystal clear. Obito was here for the Gold and Silver brothers. Darui attacked Obito with his sword covered in lightning chakra, but Obito used Kamui to phase through the attack unharmed. Obito then used the ninjutsu fire release, Blast Wave Wild Dance, releasing a whirlwind of fire that engulfed many ninjas who were protecting Benihiseigo and Kahaku no Johei, killing them in the process. After killing all the ninjas protecting the 6 sage tools, Obito took the Benihiseigo. As soon as he touched the Kahaku no Johei, a few shadows from different stones around him came to life and attached themselves to Obito's shadow. These shadows didn't stop there and went on to tie him up like a rope, immobilizing him. Shadow imitation technique, eh? No, or should I say it's something totally different from the normal shadow imitation technique, said Obito. Whatever you might say, but right now you can't move, and you can't walk away from here, said Shikamaru. Are you sure about that? Asked Obito, amusement in his tone. Just as Shikamaru was confused about what Obito meant, he heard a loud roar. It was the roar of the Gedo statue, and it was powerful enough to send Choji, who had transformed into his huge size, flying through the air. After repelling Choji, the Gedo statue jumped into the air and attacked Shikamaru's precise location. Ino witnessed this. Ino, not wanting the Gedo statue to reach Shikamaru's location, said, "No, you don't." After saying this, she controlled the kunai of many ninjas with her telekinetic powers and attacked the Gedo statue. However, these kunai and shurikens were not enough to harm the Gedo statue, which moved unhindered and without any damage. The Gedo statue landed precisely where Shikamaru was. Shikamaru used his shadow movement technique to move away to a distant location. As soon as Shikamaru moved, the huge Gedo statue fell where he had been standing a few seconds earlier, destroying the edge of the cliff. As Shikamaru was forced to move away, his control over the shadow imitation technique was lost, and Obito was freed. "We will meet again soon," said Obito, leaving the place using Kamui. As soon as Obito left, the Gedo statue also disappeared in a cloud of white smoke. Choji, now back to his normal size, appeared in front of Shikamaru and said apologetically, "Sorry, I wasn't able to hold the Gedo statue back." "Choji, you don't have to be sorry. You did nothing wrong, it's just that our opponent was very powerful," said Shikamaru with a bitter face. Ino also came and stood beside Shikamaru, saying, "I used to think that we had become very powerful, but today we learned that in front of beings like Obito and the Gedo statue, we are not powerful enough. You're all thinking this, but just imagine, Juryoku, who has the ability to suppress the likes of the Gedo statue, is still striving to become more powerful. Just how powerful must those beings from the Otsutsuki clan be?" said Shikamaru, his face solemn as he pondered this. When Shikamaru reminded them of this, both Ino and Choji began to think about how powerful the enemies who were going to attack their world would be. If we want to help Juryoku, then we have to become more powerful than we are now, said Ino. You are absolutely right. We can't give up until we become powerful enough to stand side by side with Juryoku, said Shikamaru, conviction clearly visible on his face. Yes, we have to grow even more and become even more powerful, added Choji. Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji all shared a single thought, to become powerful enough to stand with Juryoku in difficult times and to help him if needed in battle. Ino, the first thing we need to do is inform headquarters about the theft of the Kahaku no Johei and Benihiseigo, and the fact that the gold and silver brothers have been taken away, said Shikamaru urgently. I'll inform them right away, replied Ino. She immediately relayed the situation to Shikaku at headquarters. That's the end of this tale for now. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in part 9. Peace.